Good morning, everyone. Just checking, see who's listening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our full moon SANGHA. My name is Peter Bolland. We have some folks in the room, which is wonderful. And hello to everybody live streaming wherever you are. Thank you in whatever way, shape, or form for joining us here at Full Moon SANGHA, our once a month gathering where we take time away from being human doings and we try to become a human being for 60 or so minutes. And I've shared with you many times about this, and I want to think more about it with you tonight. What is the importance of meditation? Why do we bother? And why does meditation matter? Because it seems so simple, doesn't it? It seems like just sitting there and getting quiet, focusing on your breathing. And many of us have tried to do it many times and done it many times. And maybe some of you are new to meditation. And so wherever you are on your own process through your longing to enter more deeply into your own meditation practice, I think you're in the right place, because this is neither just beginner or just advanced or just intermediate. We're just a bunch of people gathered in community. That Sanskrit word, of course, Sangha, and I know it's not really a full moon tonight. People are still confused by the name of this because it's called the full moon song, and they're like, is it just on the full moon? And then I have to explain this whole thing, and so maybe it's time for a new name. But anyway, we don't really mind what it's called. We know why we're here. And so I want to think with you a little bit about why meditation matters and why we bother. And I want to quickly tell you what we do in this hour and how it's divided up. If you're new, especially to our gathering, what we're going to do is I'll have a few opening remarks here. And then that's the first phase. The second phase, I'll sit down and I'll begin to lead everyone through a body scan. That sounds sort of like a medical procedure. Maybe I should think of another word for that too. But it's just a way of kind of intentionally moving through the various muscle groups and letting go of any tension, letting go of any residual emotion, just trying to empty out, kind of drain the pool. And that takes a few minutes. And if you're interested in a deeper, richer experience with meditation, I think it's important to do that first step, to kind of close one's eyes, recede from the sensory world, and consciously and intentionally pay attention to this beautiful embodied being that you walk around in all day, and start there. Because sometimes in meditation we want to go right to the nirvana, right to the mind and its concepts of nirvana. I think it's more productive to start with the body and just relax more deeply. And then after we do that for a few minutes, I'm pointing the chair because that's where I'll be. Then after we do that for a little while, then we go into our third phase, which is the meditation, the dhyana in Sanskrit, seated meditation. The word dhyana becomes chan in Chinese, and it becomes the word Zen in Japanese. And I want to think a little bit about Zen Buddhism here at the top as well. So when we get to the meditation segment of our hour, that's when I'll lead you through a guided meditation to a certain point. Because as we've also said here many times, meditation is not some guy talking at you for an hour. Meditation is something you do in the stillness. Now, there are many forms of meditation. There's transcendental meditation, and those folks tend to focus on a mantra, a specific saying, sometimes in Sanskrit or any language you like, and everybody gets their own mantra, and inside, silently, as you're meditating, you repeat the mantra as often as you like. as a way of bringing you back to kind of the here and now. And then in Vipassana meditation or insight meditation out of the Theravada Buddhist tradition, there they don't use mantras at all. There they sit in silence, focus on their breathing, and use whatever is happening as their focal point. So maybe it's the sound of the traffic on Interstate 8 out here. Maybe it's a memory that comes up. Maybe it's an itch in your foot. Maybe it's that guy's cell phone who went off during the silent meditation. Whatever is happening, they call it Buddha's orchestra. And all of those sounds are exactly as they should be. And now the challenge is to be with what is happening without judgment, without forming an opinion about it. And so using your awareness as a tool of concentration, of focus. And all of those, and there are many more, I won't give you the whole encyclopedia article here. There's tons of different ways to meditate. And what we're going to do here is kind of a little grab bag. I'm drawing bits and pieces from many of them. But what I have tried to incorporate in the practice that we do here at Full Moon Sangha is a kind of condensed version of the eight-limbed or Ashtanga yoga of ancient India, of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. And there are 8 suggestions. Number 7 is dhyana, or meditation. There's 6 before that. Being a good person is number 1. Being moral. Number 2 is getting rid of bad habits. And then 3 and 4 are the asanas and pranayamas that you do in your yoga class, right? The breath work and the body work. That's 3 and 4. And then 5 is retreating from the sensory world. And 6 is deeper concentration. And 7 is meditation. And 8 is samadhi, which means together with the Lord, or non-dual awareness. So we are doing a kind of condensed version. I can't control whether you're a good person or not. But you can imagine how hard it would be to have a proper meditation if one weren't at least trying to be compassionate, considerate, and empathetic, and so on. But we can do some of those other things, like withdrawing from the sensory world by closing our eyes. You know, we keep the lights a little dim in here. So we try to establish the environment in which meditation might kind of sort of work-ish. You never know, right? There's good nights and bad nights. So that's what we're going to be doing. And then at the end of the hour, we kind of stretch and go on our way. Why does meditation matter? And I was remembering an experience I had 10, 12 years ago. My wife Lori and I were camping in the Anza Borrego desert, beautiful summer night. And we'd had dinner, and we had our little campfire, you know, one of those moonless nights in the desert where the stars are thick. They're so thick, they're almost like a panel of light. They're so close together. And the fire began to die down, and Lori got sleepy, so she went into the tent and went to bed. And I just laid there by myself as the fire turned into embers. And I lay there on a chase lounge that we had brought home from our backyard. And I'm laying there looking up at the stars, as one does when one is camping in the desert, right? And I wasn't doing anything in particular. I wasn't looking for shooting stars or trying to name the constellations. My mind just kind of went soft. I wasn't thinking about anything. And I suddenly had this experience. I almost get a little queasy now just recounting it to you. I suddenly had this experience that I was not laying on the top of the earth, on top of a chase lounge, but instead I was laying on the bottom of the earth. And gravity, of course, keeps us all on the ground, whether you're on the top or the bottom. And then suddenly I had this very distinct sensation that the desert floor was above me and that the field of stars were below me. Does that make sense? And I was, of course, stuck to the earth by gravity, thankfully, because I did not want to go flying into the stars at that moment. And it was, as you can imagine, utterly disorienting, almost a little nauseating, almost a little terrifying, but sublime. And it was unforgettable. And of course, it was, I ruined it by thinking about it. And I started trying to describe, like, what the hell is this? What does this mean? How can I use this in a column I have to write because I have a deadline coming up? Instantly I chewed it up into something else. But it stuck with me. Kind of the scent of it has stuck with me all these years. And you could do your own conclusion drawing, but I'll just tell you some of the things that I thought about as I came away from that experience. How arbitrary and narrow our everyday perceptions, concepts, and assumptions are. And all it took was a kind of a quiet moment for literally everything to turn upside down. And it had literally never occurred to me before that I wasn't on top of the world. Doesn't everybody walk around thinking that the earth is below me? And all those people in China are hanging off the pavement like bats. Which is, of course, ridiculous, because for them, we're all hanging off the pavement like bats. And of course, neither one is true, because guess what? In space, there is no up, there is no down. Those terms, up and down, only matter in a relative, narrow, spatial context. So where I took all of this was thinking about, I'm going to connect this to meditation. Let's see if I can do that. Because here's the connection, I think. What I experience in meditation, and let's see if we can, open the door to experiencing this together tonight. What I experience in meditation is an opportunity to have a similar kind of experience that I had in the desert that night. And that is to enter into a space below my thoughts, below my concepts, into a realm where nothing has a name. There is no up or down. And normally that sounds sort of terrifying to the discursive mind. Nothing has meaning. All definitions are lost. There's no up or down. Oh no. But in meditation, when we learn, and we've experienced this here, haven't we? Many of us who've been coming here a long time. When we experience that moment in our silent meditation where we shift our identification from the thoughts that we are having to the witness of those thoughts. And when you make that shift, and we'll say more about that later as we get into that portion of the hour, but when you make that shift and you no longer identify with the sensations that are arising, the emotions that are arising, anything around here, the specific perceptions of the traffic, the noises that people make in the room, the memories that come up, the future plans, all those thoughts that just keep firing from the fire hose, right, of the thought stream. When you shift, as Krishna calls it, into the inner witness, and now you are witnessing those thoughts. They're happening, but there's a part of you that's untouched by them. There are numerous passages in the Upanishads of ancient Hinduism that use the image of two birds. There were two birds in the bush. One is the ego, always looking out. That's mine, that's mine. Oh, I don't like this. Oh, I don't like that. And the other bird sits silently in the center of the bush, utterly free of the concept of I, me, and mine. And with images like that in the teachings of Vedanta, they're trying, I think, to describe what you and I experience in our meditation. That Peter Bolland is a guy that wants a lot of stuff and is afraid of a lot of stuff, and believe me, has an opinion about everything. And I'm not here to demonize that individual identity or the ego. As Deepak Chopra says, the ego's favorite game is to try to crush the ego. So I don't want to demonize any aspect of the layers of consciousness that we are. But when we meditate, we get a chance to play around with the possibility that maybe there's more to me than my concepts and judgments and opinions. And we know there is because we meditate. And we go into that silent space, and by sitting still long enough and getting quiet long enough and playing with, observing our thoughts the way, with the same disinterest that you would watch clouds blowing across the sky. Oh, my left foot is itching. Oh, I'm suddenly anxious about a talk I have to give next Sunday. Oh, I still feel guilty about that thing I said in anger to my mom when I was 17. I was in my childhood home a few years ago when we were selling it after both of my parents died, and in the hallway, right underneath some wallpaper so they could never fix it, was a dent about that deep in the wallpaper where I, 12-year-old Peter, had kicked the wall in anger because my mom would not let me watch 12 Angry Men, which was on TV that night, and because she wanted to watch the damn Merv Griffin show because Elizabeth Taylor was on it or something like that. And I lost my mind. I'm like, this is Henry Fonda. It's black and white, so it's cool. I was really an annoying 12-year-old. And I flew into a rage and I kicked the wall. And oh, was she mad? And now I'm a 60-year-old man and I look at that dent. Both my mom and dad are passed away, and I look at that dent in the hall. It's just, we're so silly, aren't we? The damage we do out of our passions and so on. We're silly, but we're also profound and grand and mysterious and beautiful. And in meditation, we get to go into a space where all of that is true, but all of that loses the specificity of language, of definition, of if it's this, then it's not that. And in Zen Buddhism, they think about this very thing a lot. That's why they meditate so much in Zen Buddhism. So they can experience what we're going to try to practice experiencing tonight. You know, as I said at the top, the Sanskrit word dhyana becomes chan in Chinese and then becomes Zen in Japanese. Zen Buddhism is about seated meditation. Why? Because it's the only practice that enables you to get past that cognitive grid, that conceptual filter that all experience comes through. And that filter is, in a way, a lie. Because I walk around my whole life thinking that I'm on top of the planet. And that's just a silly, weird, inaccurate thing to say. And yet I just rest in that ignorant concept. And there's a million of those. And so Zen Buddhism asks a very provocative question. What if we could experience reality without that grid in front of my eyes? And I could see things as they are before they are packaged and filtered by my own cognitive processes. And some of those it's no one's fault. Some of those cognitive processes are biological. They're the product of Darwinian evolution, hundreds of thousands of years. Some of them are structural. Some of them are indoctrinated into us by society, by our families, by the best-intentioned education and so on that we all received. That edifice is called ordinary knowledge, says the Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna. And it's great. It helps us build iPhones. We just got a new iPhone for my wife. It's an amazing thing that somebody figured out how to make. I don't understand it. It might as well be a magic wand to me. I don't know how this thing works. Ordinary knowledge is incredible, but there's a higher level of knowing, Nagarjuna argues, just as we've already been thinking about. And he calls it prajna. Let's call it in English transcendent knowledge. And it's that awareness without quality, without ego, without concepts, and without words. Plato called it noesis or intuitive grasping. And so that's the tool with which we, dare I say it, see God. Not with our concepts, our doctrines, and our scriptures. Those things are maps that get us maybe close or in the vicinity, but you have to walk the next miles with a different set of tools, namely prajna. And the purpose of meditation and why it matters is because finally we leave a little room for our original prajna to finally rise up where we might catch a glimpse of it. Because my ordinary thinking and busyness keeps it far away. It's like a scared wild creature that can hear you coming and it stays hidden. But only when you finally let go of enough and get quiet enough, he, or it might start to peek out between the leaves. So let's see tonight if we can do this very, very simple thing called meditation and not ask of it any results, any outcomes. Remember the Zen teacher Dogen, who we've talked about here a number of times. Dogen said that don't meditate to achieve enlightenment. Don't meditate to attain nirvana. The reward of meditation is the process itself. If you meditate for some ulterior experience, that's not meditation. You're just a consumer on the hunt for the next thing. Instead, we meditate and let go of any and all expectations of what the outcome is supposed to be. And the process itself is, dare I say it, the reward. I guess that's probably a misleading word. But the experience opens up on its own. Maybe to put it this way, and then we'll get started, that we are at core already, without any cleverness or effort, we are already at core self-illuminating consciousness. That's what all the great mystical traditions say. That out of the Christian tradition, everything is the incarnation of holiness. And out of Vedanta, we are Brahmanatman, eternal, formless, taking form in temporality as us. Like Carl Sagan said in Cosmos. Remember being a little kid watching Cosmos? I do. And he said, and this is an avowed atheist, Carl Sagan, right? Love him. He said, I'm paraphrasing, we are the universe's ability to be conscious of itself. The universe becomes conscious of itself through us. And so let go of any kind of demands on meditation, like it's going to fix your problems, it's going to, you're going to be enlightened. We're going to let all that kind of go and simply see what happens. Let's go into it playfully and see what happens. So, but before we meditate, we want to do the, I need a new phrase for body scan. Somebody help me out here. What's a better way of talking about that relaxation process that we do? What should we call it? Gail? Relaxation process. It just solved itself, didn't it? Yeah, thank you. I knew you would help us with that. So we're going to go into our relaxation process, but we need a little palate cleanser here. So, I'm going to make a number of suggestions about posture as we get set to go into our next thing here. Get comfortable, but I am going to ask you to sit a certain way, and all of the suggestions that I'm about to make are suggestions, not commandments. So be sure and ignore me if your body is asking you to do something else. However, I would balance that with, maybe be as willing as you can to follow suggestion, because there's a reason why I'm going to try to organize our posture a certain way. Because it's most conducive to deeper meditation. And it will more likely prevent you from falling asleep. Because we were laughing before we started, I was talking with someone, and she said, Peter, I hope I don't fall asleep during the meditation. And we had to laugh because it's actually a thing that happens all the time. In fact, one of the things we can focus on in our meditation is the sound of snoring from somebody in the room, and that's okay. If you fall asleep during the meditation, you know something about yourself. You need to get more sleep. But it's perfectly normal. But the posture I'm about to help you set up is going to prevent some of that. So, first thing I would ask is that if you're holding anything, if you're taking notes on your phone, or if you're holding a bag or a purse or a book, just set that aside, put it somewhere, and just have empty hands, and just let them be on your lap. I would uncross your legs if you have your legs crossed. Again, if that's not comfortable, but ideally uncross your legs and just put your feet on the floor, kind of the same distance as your knees and your hips and your shoulders. So you have two parallel lines here. We want a kind of intentional pose here. And then make sure you've scooted all the way back in the seat. Scoot your butt all the way back as far as it will go so that your back is beautifully supported by that nice chair back. And then just let your hands kind of fall in your lap however they fall. Now, I invite you to close your eyes. Again, if this is a problem, then don't. In Zen Buddhism, they don't close their eyes. Of course, they're sitting in a beautiful wooden Zen temple with no accoutrement facing the wall. But I find it helpful to close my eyes, and I recommend it. So close your eyes, and this begins our withdrawal from the sensory world. It kind of signals to your mind that we're getting ready for something a little different now. We're shifting into something a little more distant from this beautiful visual palette that we swim through all day. Remember I mentioned in Ashtanga Yoga, one of the 8 stages is withdrawal from the sensory realm. So that's kind of what this is. So eyes closed, sitting in a specific posture. I have a couple more things about your posture. I would invite you now to lift the top of your head, the very crown of your head. Lift it slightly toward the ceiling. Just slightly, not a huge stretch, but just slight lift to the top of the head. So you feel your vertebrae separating a little bit. And at the same time that you're lifting the top of your head, allow your shoulders to go very soft. Let your shoulders drop as far as they'll go. Lifting the crown of the head, dropping the shoulders down in a very relaxed way. Now, let's take 3 deep inhalations into the belly. Inhale, and out. Again, in, and exhale. One more very deep in, and out. As we go forward now through our relaxation process, and after that meditation process, check your posture once in a while, because the body has a tendency to kind of slouch back into your TV watching pose. So check to make sure your head stays up, your shoulders down, and all the rest. Okay, now let's begin the relaxation. I invite you now to bring your attention to the muscles around your eyes. Simply notice how they feel, your eyelids, the eyes themselves, the muscles of the forehead. Release any tiredness or tension in these muscles. Let it go. Feel it draining away like water into sand. Feel that now the eyes are softer, more relaxed. And now I invite you to move your attention down lower into the area of the mouth and the jaw and the lips and the tongue. These powerful muscles that chew our food and talk and laugh and all the things that we do with these muscles of our jaw and lip and tongues. And as with the eyes, simply release any tiredness or tension that you have residually held here in these muscles. Let it all drain away down like water through sand. And now notice that your entire face is softer, more peaceful, and released of its burdens. And now I invite you to move your attention lower into your neck and shoulders. These very powerful muscle groups that hold up our 10-pound head and swing it around all day, and move our arms around and put on shirts and lift up giant, heavy Le Creuset pots. And all the things that we've done today. I gave my dog a bath today. I got a good workout. So let all of that drain away, especially the emotional residual that tends to, like water in a reservoir, kind of store in the neck and shoulders. Your anger, your fear, your grief, your resentment, frustration, sadness. Let all of that go now. We'll pick it all back up later before we get to our car. But for now, let it all drain away like water draining through sand. And since we're in our shoulders, let's let our mind's eye travel down both arms, through the bicep, across the elbow, through the forearm, through the wrist, and into the hands. I invite you now to bring your attention to the area of your hands as they rest there in your lap. How do they feel? Are they warm or cold? Do they feel alive? Is there a subtle sense, not a vibration, but a kind of barely perceivable glow, a thrum, like a distant waterfall, just a almost imperceptible feeling of energy in the palms of your hands? And do you notice that that energy in the palms of your hands extends beyond the tissues of your hands, as if there were an orb, a glowing sphere in the area immediately around your hands? We're not looking for demonstrable, empirically provable facts. We're looking for a different epistemological road. We're looking for experience. Do you sense and experience that glow? And now, when you do, you realize that what you and I call consciousness is not merely housed in the tissues of the brain, not merely housed in the neurons, the brain cells, but in a way housed throughout the mind-body, in ways we both can and cannot perceive. That the trillions and trillions of cells of our body, each one perceiving some of the others and responding and reacting with them, systems nested within systems, nested within systems, all of them operating without our permission or consent on our behalf. What a miracle this life is. What a gift of infinite treasure these mind bodies are. And now let's finally then complete our relaxation process by releasing whatever tensions or tiredness or fatigue or aches and pains anywhere in our body. Let them all drain away. Feel them moving through your legs, through your calves, through your ankles, into your feet, and out through the bottoms of the soles of your feet. Feel it all draining away out of the bottom of your feet, into the floor of this room, through the floor, into the earth of this beautiful river valley, which receives it all. Our great mother, Gaia, Shakti, Mahadevi, Mary, all of the names of the Divine Mother, this earth. And the birth that gave rise to us. Take stock now of how your whole mind and body feels. Simply notice without judgment or comment the condition that you're in. Know that you can receive this same condition anytime by yourself. No one has given you anything here. We have simply released obstacles and let go impediments so that the peace that we are can glow more brightly and be visible from up here on the surface. So now we are ready to begin the meditation. So I invite you now to move your attention to the mind, specifically to the thoughts that you are having. And by thoughts, I mean any mental event, any mentation. It can be the way you're processing the words that I am saying. It can be your auditory sensation, hearing the hissing of tires on Interstate 8. Or in my case, the tinnitus that always rings inside my own ears, and maybe yours too. Notice all of those perceptions and sensations. And by thoughts, we also mean, yes, the concepts you are having, the emotions, the ideas. What are you going to do with the rest of that rotisserie chicken that you got at Costco? Should you make a pesto? Lasagna? Stupid stuff like that will arise. as we slip deeper into our meditation today. And so make a decision now as we prepare soon to move into a time of silence. Make a decision to play with this idea. When that thought comes up about what to do with the chicken in the refrigerator, or something distracting in any way, shape, or form, simply decide now that when it arises, and it will, especially when I stop talking, simply witness it with the same disinterest that you would watch a car driving down a street from your second-story hotel room in a foreign city. You're on the balcony, the light turns red, then the light turns green, and the cars start to move. You don't have an opinion about any of those cars. You don't try to stop them. You don't try to hold on to any of them. You simply witness them. What if we could perform that same feat with our own pain, our own pleasure, our own memories, our own longings and cravings, our own judgments, our own opinions? Let's practice. Let's try that. So as we begin now to move into a time of silence, as you feel your mind pulled away, simply bring your attention back to the breath. Check your posture. Make sure you're still sitting in that correct way. And as you shift into the inner witness, wonder about the question, who is meditating? Who is meditating? As we now spend the next 5 or 10 minutes in silence. I invite you to open your eyes if you haven't already. And let's go ahead and stretch and move freely about. Do all the things I didn't tell you to do. Come back into this room. There's a subtle amplification process about meditating together with 18 of us or whoever's in here. I'm not just guessing. And all the folks at home on live stream. And I would argue in some strange atemporal way, even with folks who are going to watch this video later, that when we gather together in that kind of experience of silence, it's very intimate, isn't it? It's very vulnerable. It's not easy to sit quietly with a bunch of people and not say anything or do anything and just be. You feel a little exposed. Of course, it's dark and we can't really see each other, and most of us are wearing masks and that kind of thing as well. Or if you're sitting in the front and you can't see any of the people behind you. But still, and I know I've spoken to so many of you, it feels different to meditate here in our community, in any community, than it does by yourself at home with your earbuds on the Insight Timer app or what other resource you're using, some other YouTube video. That something happens when we're together in this space, and I don't want to ruin anything by trying to explain it or figure it out or put some theory onto it about mirror neurons or cosmic radio waves or start blathering on about that. Look, we just feel it. We just feel it, we experience it, and it's subtle but real. And that's what keeps me coming back to meditation, is its efficacy. That when I meditate in the morning, there is a flavor to the rest of the day. There's a quality. I still run into the exact same problems that I would have run into without the meditation. But I come into it, I'm a little different. There's that great... I think it's Kierkegaard who said that prayer doesn't change God. Prayer changes the one who prays. And I resonate with that. I don't know how you came up in your childhood, what kind of theology you were raised in. I wasn't raised in a religious home. And so I never was taught about a God who sits in the sky kind of like a short order cook, and you just put in your orders. 2 eggs over easy, hash browns well done, extra sausage. And God's like, okay. That kind of, God is not a store that you go get stuff from. I never was brought up in that theology, and so I really connect now in my later years to people like Kierkegaard, who was a Christian of the Protestant sort and was committed in his faith, and yet he still was able to say something I think rather remarkable about prayer, that it doesn't, you don't pray to change God, you pray to change yourself. And I think about that with meditation. It's perfectly analogous. That we meditate, I believe, not to become someone that we're not, but we meditate in order to become more who we are. To again set loose some of the, baggage is a common word we've been using since the 70s, right? To let loose some of that baggage. And it's remarkable what's left. There are wonderful passages in the Upanishads. Again, I keep going back to the Vedanta tradition. There's one that says that we're like sleeping dreamers, wandering the world in search of our lost loved one. And all the while, they are lying right next to us. And the implication is all we have to do is wake up. Or there's another one that says that we are like kings or queens wandering our kingdom in tatters, like a pauper, not knowing who we are. And there's another passage in the Upanishads that we're like a, I'm thinking about camping tonight since my camping story. Remember, not the new, everybody has cool electric LED Coleman lights now. In the old days, why, when I was young, we had those little, liquid white gas Coleman lamps that you pumped up, and they had that little mantle in them, and you lit them, and you had to keep pumping it to keep the pressure of the tank on. And that glass, sometimes if you didn't do it right, a lot of black smoke and the glass got really cloudy. And then no light came out. Well, there's a line in the Upanishads that says, we are like a glass lamp covered with soot. And what if meditation is the process that polishes off the soot so that the one light that we are can rejoin the one light that we are and come out of this sort of self-imposed isolation? That each of us is a wave on the surface of the ocean, and I'm rising up over here, and you're rising up over there, and you're rising up over there. But none of us is aware that we're all just the ocean waving. And so caught up in what Nagarjuna called ordinary knowledge, or in the Hindu word maya, my perceptions, my conceptions. Because maya doesn't just mean the illusion of perception. It means the whole worldview that I built based on those perceptions. Like the crazy idea that I am on top of the planet right now. What a perfectly solipsistic, egotistic bit of ridiculousness. And everybody else is on some weird angle or hanging by their shoes. It's a really apt example of how arbitrary and ultimately untrue and kind of laughably silly so many of my judgments and concepts are. So all of that is what we leave behind when we go into the silence. And you experienced it with me right now. It's not easy. Because the conceptual mind is like, hey, Peter, what are you doing? We're like Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Dave, what are you doing? Any 2001 fans in here? Sorry, I'm making a lot of references here, but there's a bit of a struggle, and I hate to turn it into a dualistic combat between the conceptual mind and the Atman, the groundless, spacious being that we are. But since we're now back in our discursive minds, using concepts and words, it's fine. It makes perfect sense to put it that way, that there is a struggle. All the great mystics talk about that struggle too. It's not all just peace and love, is it? There's a struggle in here. Some call it the higher self and the lower self, angels and demons. I don't know. Dress it up in whatever conceptual mythology you want. But we experience it. When we try to grow still, and our mind is just not having it. The fire hose of thoughts gets stronger. Says, hey, Peter, pay attention to this. So meditation isn't just a once-in-a-while thing. It has to be a kind of maintenance program. And I'm not going to give you an assignment or demand that you begin meditating every day. There's not much point to that. I would just hope that the invitation now has been sounded. And some of you are hearing it and might decide, I'm eating better, I'm exercising more, maybe I should add regular meditation into my wellness program. I was talking with someone else before we started, and I'll close off here. Deepak Chopra has kind of a funny line about this. Somebody came to Deepak Chopra and said, how many times should I meditate a day. And he said, oh, you should meditate once a day. And then the questioner said, well, I'm super busy. I really don't have time to meditate once a day. How many times should I meditate? And he said, you should meditate twice a day. So if you think you're too busy to meditate once a day, my invitation will be to meditate twice a day. And I certainly noticed that in my own imperfect practice, that the more regularly I meditate, you know what starts to happen? I get more done. My days are actually more productive because there's a sense of, there's a little tone of peace that comes into every task. And suddenly, not everything is conflict and fear-driven. You're just doing the work that is yours to do without drama. And at the end of the day, you've knocked down 8 things. You're like, that was pretty good. So what if that's a crazy idea to experiment with? That meditation makes you more productive. Boy, this Sangha just took a turn. Now it's a productivity workshop. That's not where I thought I was going to go. But I know a lot of you are worried that I don't have, if I meditate, then I won't have time to clean the bathroom or whatever, some chore that needs doing that you're probably not going to do today anyway. All right. Let's take us out with one last gong of my full moon singing bowl. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here in this room and on the live stream for our full moon Sangha. See you on the first Monday of December, the last full moon Sangha of the year. Namaste, everybody. Thank you.